Hello students, I am Dr. Rajaram Dhok from Savitribai Phule Pune University affiliated Agricultural Development Trust Shardabai Pawar Mahila College Sharda Nagar Baramati. Let's start. Today we learn about the crystal field theory, and in this crystal field theory in the lecture 1 we see about the general introduction to the crystal field theory. In the last lecture we have seen the valence bond theory. And in that valence bond theory, the Pauling have explained that valence bond theory and hybridization concept of that valence bond theory. So hybridization suggested by Pauling helped to interpret the geometrical shape of that different complexes. But hybridization by itself fails to account the polymetric data. And so there are so many limitations of this theory. There were unexplained differences between measured and calculated magnetic moments. That valence bond theory have not explained the actual magnetic property, magnetic moment, its values. So compounds were found which had intermediate values for their magnetic moment. The distinction between ionic and covalent bonding in complexes is also observed confusing according to that valence bond theory. So difficulties arises for the interpretation of geometrical shapes. For example, in complexes, the square planar shapes is have certain objections why CuNH342 plus are distorted. Then such type of so many difficulties are observed. And to overcome that all the difficulties, the Bethe and Van Vlk, these two scientists introduce a new theory, and that new theory is called as crystal field theory. And mainly this theory is applied for the ionic crystals, and this theory has given the name crystal field theory. Orgel had developed the general aspects of this theory after the Bethe and Van Vlk. So on the basis of this theory, a complex is regarded as an aggregation of central ions surrounded by other ions or molecules with electrical dipoles. These electrical dipoles of central ion that will affect the surrounding ligands, while the combined field of the ligands is particularly marked on the d electrons, and these d electrons play such a large part in complex formation by transition elements. The influence of the ligands depends on their geometrical positions in the complex. So in the simple bonding between central ion and ligand, these are purely ionic or purely electrostatic, so that forces involved in between the metal and ligands are electrostatic forces. This theory does not consider covalent bonding. So valence bond theory explains there is formation of covalent bonding. But this crystal field theory not considered for the covalent bonding, and it only consider about the ionic bonding, ionic characteristic. Such a limited treatment is generally referred in crystal field theory. Crystal field theory only about the ionic bonding. So the modified treatment, which includes covalent bonding and ionic bonding, that is called as ligand field theory. But here in this topic we see about the crystal field theory, and that crystal field theory, how we explain what are the different assumptions of this crystal field theory. So we see the assumptions of crystal field theory. So in the crystal field theory, the complex formed is explained. So according to this theory, in a complex, the transition metal ion is placed at the center, and that transition metal is surrounded by the ligand, and that ligand contains lone pair of electrons. So these ligands are either negatively ions. So there are so many ligands like Cn, Cl, or there are certain neutral molecules like H2O, NH3, and these ligands are considered as point charges. If the ligand is neutral molecules, then in that case, negative end of the dipole is directed towards the metal ion. For example, in case of the H2O, the negatively charged containing oxygen, they are directed towards the metal. Then third assumptions, there is no interaction between the metal orbital and ligand orbital. Means in between metal and ligand there is not any interaction. Only metal and ligand are attracted towards each other by electrostatic force of attraction. And that is the important thing in this crystal field theory. The attraction between the metal ion and the ligand is purely electrostatic. Means the bond is 100% ionic, and any characteristic of covalent bonding is not present, or it is not explained by crystal field theory. Then fifth assumptions explained by this theory, that is the electrons of the metal ion are repelled by the negative field of ligands. Electrons of the metal ions are repelled by the negative field of the ligands, and therefore the metal electrons occupies those d orbitals which have away from the ligand directions. They are away from the ligand directions because ligand electrons repels the electrons of metal. Then sixth assumption is number of ligand and their arrangement around the metal ion determines the nature and strength of the crystal field. Means how many ligands are attached, surrounded by that metal, and depending of that, strength of that crystal field is observed. The degeneracy of d orbital of the free metal ion is removed by the ligands when there is formation of complex. Means when metal orbitals come in contact with ligand, then degeneracy of that metal orbital is removed. Means that d orbital split into certain groups, and this happens when ligand come in contact with metal and there is formation of complex. So these are the some assumptions of crystal field theory. Now we see the shapes of d orbitals, because the crystal field theory is explained in the metal d orbitals, and in that mainly d orbitals are considered. And for that purpose, we have to see very carefully the shapes of d orbitals. So you all know that there are 5 types of d orbitals, and that name of d orbital is dxy orbital, dyz orbital, dxz orbital. Then fourth d orbital is dx square dash y square and dz square. Now, if we see the lobes of these d orbitals, then every d orbitals contains four lobes, but orientation of that lobes are different. So what is the orientation? What is the direction of these lobes? You see this dxy. So you see here x axis, y axis and z axis. And in between that axis, that lobes of orbitals are present. So in dxy orbital, the lobes are in between the x-axis and y-axis. You see this in between the x-axis and y-axis. Other lobe is also at the opposite direction in between x and y-axis. Then in the other side also, this is the minus x, this is minus y. So other two lobes are in between the x and y axis. So in this way, dxy is in between the x and y axis. dyz, similar to the first, dyz means that is lobes are in between the y and z axis. So you see this is in between y and z axis. And in other cases also same. Then dxz, dxz is lobes are in between the x and z axis. So you see this is the z axis, this is x axis. So in between that lobes are present. So you see these three d orbitals dxy, dyz and dxz, these orbitals lobes are in between the corresponding axis. Now we see the fourth d orbital dx square dash y square. In this case, there are lobes are along the x-axis and along the y-axis. So you see this is the x-axis. So lobes are along the x-axis. Then y square means these lobes are along the y-axis. So in dx square and y square, the lobes are along the x-axis and y-axis. Now fifth d orbital, that is dz square. So the lobes are along the z-axis. So these main lobes are along the z-axis, and along the x and y-axis, the lobes are in the form of ring and they are rotated around that center in the form of ring. This is the shape of dz square. So these are the shape of d orbital. So you remember that shape carefully, and depending upon these shapes, that d orbitals are of two types of symmetry. In the first three orbitals dxy, dyz and dxz, its lobes are in between the axes. And in the other two, that is the dx square dash y square and dz square, lobes are along the in between the, sorry, they are along the axis.